not forgotten
My
that.
name is Mildred, but most people call me
Millie, yeah, I
Millie.
know.
Or Miss Millie. If you're old enough, you can call me Millie or Mildred.
Hello, everyone. This is the Fifth Ethical Revelation Fellowship. I'm Reverend Dr. Roger Paul. And today, we are going to study paper 140, the Ordination of the 12. And today is October 5th, I believe, 2014. So let's have a little prayer and we'll get started. Diane, would you start us out in the prayer this morning, dear?
Dear Heavenly Father, and Mother God, we thank you so much for this day. Thank you for the wonderful weather that we're having as fall is here. We thank you for this opportunity to learn and grow from the readings and the information that is in the Urantia Book. And we ask that you bless our minds, open our minds, make them receptive to the information and knowledge, and the pieces that fit into the place of truth, so that we may learn it well and pass it on to others and bless other lives as well. We thank you for Roger's dedication and commitment to studying the book for so many years with such intensity, and our hearts are grateful. It is in the name of Jesus Christ, Michael of Nebadon, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, let me clicker going here. We're starting on page 1568.1, or in the new book, paper 140, paragraph 1. And why don't you start here?
I'm sitting here by myself on this couch.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Justin, if you want to sit on the couch, you're welcome to. You know, I brought the chair in because I thought you could see better from there. But
He may be like me. It's
Dustin.
very soft
Dustin,
under there.
I mean,
It is.
Well, they've
I got a good
It is.
friend,
It's
son
right,
named
yeah.
Justin. I can't.
Oh, sorry.
Dustin. You want to start here?
I will. Just before noon on Sunday, January 12th, AD 27, Jesus called the apostles together for their ordination as public preachers of the gospel of the kingdom. The 12 were expecting to be called almost any day, so this morning they did not go out far from the shore to fish. Several of them were lingering near the shore, repairing their nets and tinkering with their fishing paraphernalia.
Interesting how they give us the exact dates on some of these things.
It's really interesting.
Okay, let me see if I can.
So they had what, about 6 months worth of
Training,
of
yeah.
training? I mean,
Yeah.
for the older one,
Yeah.
well, maybe a little more, okay.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit
It's not very much.
Less than a year.
more. Yeah, less than a year. Yeah.
And they did what a number of religious groups do as well. They go in pairs and go try to talk to people and try
Yeah.
to say, hey, preach the word, right?
Yeah, kind of get their feet wet a little bit. Yeah. Mom, would you take the next one?
As Jesus started down the seashore calling the apostles, he first hailed Andrew and Peter, who were fishing near the shore. Next he signals to James and John, who were in a boat nearby, visiting with their father, Zebedee, and mending their nets. 2 by 2 he gathered up the other apostles, and when he had assembled all 12, he journeyed with them to the highlands north of that one I don't know,
Capernaum.
where he proceeded to instruct them in preparation for their formal ordination.
Ordination.
It's okay.
All right, they were getting prepared. And this is a picture of that trip to where they went from the fishing area to where they were going to be ordained.
So where did they start and where were they ordained?
Okay, they started. Let me go back here. Let me see if I can see this picture. I can't see it from the side.
Go on.
Okay, here they are in Bethsaida. Okay, and they go all the way down to Capernaum, which is down here, I
By boat or by
believe. No, by land.
by land?
By land. Yeah.
So how long is that?
This next picture may be a little bit better. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so no, here's Capernaum here. This is a better picture. You couldn't tell by the other one. They start here at Matthew's or the Zebedee house. They go to Capernaum for the organization. Then afterwards, they go back and then they come down to Tarkia, I think it is. Can't read it because the lines through it.
You took them from Marsh.
Caressa, I'm sorry, to Caressa.
It actually looks like they went down the east side. Went straight over that way.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Here's Caressa over here.
Did it take them from March 1st one year till January 1st the next to get there? Is that what it says?
This is a long period of time, Mom.
How long did it take them?
What did it say at the beginning of this? This was, let's go back one slide here.
March, January.
January 12th, right? They started out. That is,
So January.
here it is. This is where this starts right here, okay? January 12th through the 18th. This is paper 140. This was the previous papers, 138. So, January 12th, they started here and went to here, okay? And then on the 19th, they went back to the home of Zebedee. So this is all we're talking about in this paper, is this one down here, not this here. This was before, I've forgotten, since the 38, paper 38. So we're starting here, we're going over to the hills of Capernaum for the ordination, and then they're going back to David Zebedee's
And
house.
roughly how long is that between the?
That's from January 12th.
No, in terms of distance between the
To
home
the
of Zebedee
19th.
and
I
Capernaum.
have no idea.
Doesn't look like it's too far though.
Are we talking about a couple of miles? Are we talking about 1 day worth of?
No idea, because there's not a scale on this.
I'm surprised how big the Sea of Galilee is. You know, it looks
We
quite
might be
large.
able to tell from this previous picture. There's no scale on this one either. No.
There's no legend on the maps.
No. Well, this is wrong.
But it took 6 days from
6
the,
days.
This is the wrong
from the
picture.
12th to the
Well,
18th.
we'll see
says
how long of
140.
that is going to be walking.
This is right. Okay. So we don't know how long, it took 6 days to get there, so
We don't know the distance.
we don't know the distance. Right.
So it's
6 days to get there.
Yeah, to the hills of Capernaum, it looks like.
Walking.
Huh? Walking, yeah.
Well, what is the March of
Okay.
26 to January of 27?
That's probably where they had the teachings. They were.
That
Jesus
was
teaching.
that was paper 38. Yeah, that's when he was instructing them.
Okay.
You know, you remember it talks about them getting in a boat and going across. That's what that is. There. All right. Because that was paper 37. March through July was paper 37. July 7th is paper 38. And 8 through 9 was all paper 38. And they don't have anything for 39, so it's been stationary.
Well, and 39 was about the apostles, their
Yeah.
personalities. And
That's
their-
right.
yeah.
That's right. Okay. All right.
For once all 12 of the apostles were silent. Even Peter was in a reflective mood. At last the long-waited for hour had come. They were going apart with the Master to participate in some sort of solemn ceremony of personal consecration and collective dedication to the sacred work of representing the Master in the proclamation of the coming of his Father's kingdom.
All right, so they're all excited because they're gonna get to go with the Master somewhere and do something special. Only them, right?
I'm excited for them.
Yeah.
1. Preliminary instruction. Before the formal ordination service, Jesus spoke to the 12 as they were seated about him. My brethren, this hour of the kingdom has come. I have brought you apart here with me to present you to the Father as ambassadors of the kingdom. Some of you heard me speak of this kingdom in the synagogue when you first were called. Each of you has learned more about the Father's kingdom since you have been with me, working in the cities around about the Sea of Galilee. But just now, I have something more to tell you concerning this kingdom.
Now keep in mind, the ordination sermon that we're going to talk about today is the one that's commonly known as the Sermon on the Mount. in the Bible, okay? So, just to inform y'all, that's where this is coming from, okay?
The new kingdom which my Father is about to set up in the hearts of his earth children is to be an everlasting dominion. There shall be no end of this rule of my Father in the hearts of those who desire to do his divine will. I declare to you that my Father is not the God of Jew or Gentile. Many shall come from the east and from the west to sit down with us in the Father's kingdom, while many of the children of Abraham will refuse to enter this new brotherhood of the rule of the Father's Spirit in the hearts of the children of men.
So right off the bat, he tries to tell them that this kingdom they're setting up is not just for the Jews. It's for all men, right? The Gentiles as well. So, and what he's telling them here, that many of the Gentiles will become members in the kingdom, and many of the Jews will reject it. So he's preparing them for this, you know, because they've been taught their whole life growing up, you know, about this, the kingdom of God, and how they were the chosen ones and that sort of thing. So he's preparing them right off the bat.
How the Jews were the chosen.
That the Jews were the chosen ones. So he's preparing them right off the bat to explain to them that all men are part of this kingdom, not just the Jews, right? Jews and Gentiles alike, okay?
And it's a kingdom of spirit and in the heart of men, not
That's right. Not a military,
right.
yeah.
But the problem of using kingdom is, I think a lot of them still feel in terms of what's going on right now and
Yeah.
position and we are special and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
A quick question, you mentioned that this is the same as the sermon.
Sermon on the Mount.
Sermon on the
In the
Mount.
Bible, a lot of this comes from the references of the area that's the preaching of the Sermon on the Mount.
Okay,
And this was done to the apostles, not to the masses.
right.
In the Bible, it tells us that he was preaching to a large mass of people. In reality, this was the sermon that he preached to the apostles during their ordination.
Yeah, my question was, since my understanding is who the people who wrote the Bible, right, or whatever, they are not the original apostles, I understand. Is it correct?
Well, yeah, they weren't the original apostles, but many parts of the Bible were written by associates of the apostles.
Okay, so in other words, the apostle would have told those associates what happened on that sermon, right? That's how
That's
the
right.
Bible would know about it.
That's right.
But there were apparently some confusion since they believed it was a private.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of it came from the notes of Andrew, and then later on from Peter's memories, and eventually John's. So a lot of it was many years later, and they tried to remember as much as they possibly can. Most of the real meat of the subject came from Andrew's notes that was passed around and altered and that sort of thing. And almost all of the Gospels came from Andrew's notes and Mark's, basically his remembrances. Now remember, Mark is not an apostle, right? Mark was a young man hanging around the apostles during this whole period of time, right? They tell us at one point how old he was, and I think it was like 13 to 16, something along.
And most of his
That line.
writings were very accurate too.
Yeah.
You know, when you study the Bible and break down, Mark is like
Yeah.
really right on.
Yeah. And Isidore, I believe it was an associate. That's right. Don't quote me on that one
And that's who wrote these.
though. Huh?
These young people that wrote these before the original, or the apostles were ordained. Did they remember this?
No, this is by recorded by the midwayers, and one of them was assigned to the apostle Andrew. Okay, which Andrew made the notes from. Okay, well, Andrew made his notes, so having been there with Andrew the whole time, the midwayer, they have perfect memory, they have perfect recall. Okay, so what we get from this revelation is the perfect recall of the midwayers.
Are we sure of that? Because they say also in the Revelation that they are bounded to using as much as possible human origin. So it is possible that that he's bounded by using Andrew's notes.
As much as possible, they have used human recollections of everything that happened.
Right.
Okay, but in instances where there was no record, they were allowed to fill it in.
Right. But since
Yeah.
here there was record, maybe one of the reasons, I don't know, I haven't done this.
Well, that's why so much of it looks like it
Example.
comes right out of the Bible,
Right.
right? And the parts that is not in the Bible is the recollection of the midwares,
Right.
right? There, you know, it says at one place, not in the life of Christ, I believe it's in the beginning of the book, it says, all planets' history is in trust with the local midwares of each planet, because they have remembrance of time since the beginning of time, where we don't. You know, we have a very short lifetime. So all the history of every planet, the trust of that memory is within the midwares, not the people.
But it is conceivably possible that something that was in Andrew's notes made it through the Urantia papers, even though they may not be 100% correct.
Not likely, because they had a Melchizedek that actually had to help edit this. So being a teacher, the Melchizedek being of the teacher origin, they would probably corrected most things that were total error. You know, might not be 100% right.
Right, well, that's now the question is,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
don't know, we're not instructed about which is what and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
on.
But as closely as possible, they tried to use what we already had.
All right. Now,
That's why there's like thousands and thousands of references, entire sentences from people that have written books and stuff like that right in the Urantia book. You know, it looks like plagiarization some places because the whole sentence is there. Because it gives the concept to a human mind in such a way that we can understand it the best. You know, when one human mind expresses something, another human mind tends to understand it better. So as much as possible, they stayed with the human interpretations of it.
With the translations into other languages here on Earth in Urantia, it's being done by individuals, by people.
Yeah.
And so some of the translation is not exactly accurate, so it's constantly being revised. It's like Roger's been working with a gentleman from Spain, and he's had to help him a lot with different concepts, because he's rewriting the original translation that was done here in the United States for it.
Yeah, for Spanish, and it's not exactly accurate, so he's rewriting the Spanish translation. And he writes me sometimes and asks for my explanation of certain concepts, because it's different in English than it is in Spanish.
I have experienced the same in French.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Actually, they did the second translation.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's keep going.
It does make you wonder why the apostles didn't write this information down sooner than,
Because of Jesus's
he
rules
refused to.
not to write down anything down.
So they were following.
Right, he was following the instructions of Emmanuel, and so they saw him never write anything down, so they assumed that he did not want them to record anything either, you know, for
Makes sense.
50, 60 years, so. And it was Jesus' instruction not to write anything
But
down.
Jesus knew about the midwares
Yeah.
too, and
Yeah.
Melchizedek.
They knew everything was being recorded. It's
Yeah.
just like our guardian angels record everything in our life. Nothing is lost,
Mm.
you know. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, the power of this kingdom shall consist not in the strength of armies, nor in the might of riches, but rather in the glory of the divine Spirit that shall come to teach the minds and rule the hearts of the reborn citizens of this heavenly kingdom, the sons of God. This is the brotherhood of love, wherein righteousness reigns, and whose battle cry shall be peace on earth and goodwill to all men. This kingdom, which you are soon to go forth proclaiming, is the desire of the good men of all ages, the hope of all the earth, and the fulfillment of the wise promises of all the prophets.
Okay, so who is this divine spirit he's talking about? The spirit of truth. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Now, involved in that is whom? The Holy Spirit, right? The Mother, Universe Creator Mother Spirit's part also, right? Which would be the Holy Spirit. But the divine spirit he's talking about, it is the divine spirit that will be poured out on all men, which is also what? His spirit, right? So the divine spirit being the Spirit of truth, His Spirit, combined with what? The Holy Spirit. Does that make sense?
And the thought adjuster as well.
And the thought adjuster.
Because the thought adjuster represents the divine spirit.
Well, the thought adjuster is a different influence, though.
It is.
That's
but,
an internal. The other two are external.
But how do we know that? I mean, we're talking about the divine spirit and what it means. Isn't still it is, even though it's a distinct one, it's also a divine spirit that influences.
Well, it's actually more a. That's what makes us. You know, the part it says here, the sons of God. It's the adjuster that makes us sons of God, right? That fusion with the adjuster. Remember when we talked about faith sons of God compared to real sons of God? Faith sons of God is what we are on this planet, right? We have faith, we'll become permanent sons of God. The adjuster, when we fuse with the adjuster, we become real sons of God. And that has a lot to do too. But the interesting part about this is the fact that it says here, the Spirit that shall come to teach the minds and rule the hearts of reborn citizens, and that is His Spirit, right? The Spirit of truth. That's what was poured out on Pentecost, okay? And that's what he's talking about here, okay?
Not here yet, but that shall come.
That shall come, right? And at this point, was the Holy Spirit already active? Yes, it was. So he's talking about the Spirit to come. And the only Spirit to come is
Spirit of truth.
the Spirit of truth.
Is the Holy Spirit part of the seven
Adjutant mind spirits?
mind spirits, or is it something on top of it?
It's on top of it.
It's on top of it.
Yeah. The Holy Spirit is really the influence of the infinite Spirit and the local universe creative Mother Spirit through her. Okay? So that's like our direct connection to the Holy Spirit, or the infinite Spirit, part of the Trinity. All right, let's keep going. Did I skip over one?
You.
Yeah. The power of this kingdom shall consist not in the strength of armies.
Just read that.
No, is that the, oh, sorry.
Next one.
I didn't skip over it. I didn't do it here. Okay, sorry, yeah. Are we good here too?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. But for you, my children, and for all others who would follow you into this kingdom, there is set a severe test. Faith alone will pass you through its portals, but you must bring forth the fruits of my Father's Spirit if you would continue to ascend in the progressive life of the divine fellowship. Verily, verily, I say to you, not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but rather he who does the will of my Father in heaven. It is by faith we are saved, right? This is where the faith part comes in. That's why we're faith sons of God. This is a hard saying, and people do not understand this very much. When he says, not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven. And that's true. We're going to have people cry out to God in their last minute, in their last days, that never believed in God, right? And he said, but rather he who does the will of my Father in heaven. It's not a lip service. It's believing that God is your Father and doing the will of God in your life, right? And that's important. That's a hard saying, and people don't often realize what that means.
You see, there are two steps. There is the faith to get started,
It's the faith,
and then there is the work to actually progress.
the action,
The action,
the
the work,
action,
the work.
right? Which is
Not the
doing
word, the work.
yeah, the work, doing the will of the Father.
That's right. So, but you need to get started first, right? There is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
faith part.
The faith starts you. The faith gets you through the door, right? The portal, and it's the work that keeps you on the path, right? Does that make sense?
All through the different mansion worlds. and
That's
that
all the way,
continues all the way up to
the whole ascension.
the whole ascension plan.
The whole ascension plan, even after fusion with your adjuster, it's still a faith a trial and error type thing all the way up. We continue to keep learning. If we didn't continue to keep learning, there wouldn't be any reason for all the different levels of the Urantia beings and the 6 levels of the spirit being, right? You know, we keep getting more and more and more perfected by doing what? The will of the Father. Right? Okay. Yeah. Did we skip over Millie?
Millie, did you
No.
read?
No.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Okay. Your message to the world shall be, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and in finding these, all other things essential to eternal survival shall be secured therewith. And now would I make it plain to you that this kingdom of my Father will not come with an outward show of power or unseeming demonstration. You are not to go hence in the proclamation of the kingdom, saying, it is here, or it is there. For this kingdom of which you preach is God within you.
So do you think, because of what he says right here, that we're going to see some glorious thing where Jesus comes out of the clouds and takes over the world?
No.
An unseemly demonstration.
An unseemly demonstration. He tells us right here that this is not the way it's done, is it? Okay? The kingdom of God is within us right here, right now. Right? It's not here, it's not there. The kingdom is within you. Right? And we do the will of God within you. And through that kingdom within you, the power of God will eventually, what? Reveal itself over time. Right? Okay. I'm blowing everybody's hopes to death. All the pieces. Mom, would you take the next one?
Whosoever would become great in my Father's kingdom shall become a minister to all, and whosoever would be first among you, let him become the servant of his brethren. But when you are once truly received as citizen in the heavenly kingdom, you are no longer servant, but sons, sons of the living God. You shall, and so shall this kingdom progress in the world until it shall break down every barrier and bring all men to know my Father and believe in the serving truth which I have come to declare. Even now is the kingdom at hand, and some of you will not die until you have seen the reign of God come in great power.
And that's exactly what happened, wasn't it? They saw God's miracles happen right before their eyes, right? Okay. One other thing I want to mention about this paragraph I think is real important. You start out as servants to other men, right? Serve your brothers.
And sisters.
And sisters. And you end up being sons of the living God. What's the difference? It goes from being a servant to a responsibility as a son of God, right? So it changes. We have to get that servant attitude to serve one another, but then it turns into our responsibility to do the will of God within our life, and that's how we assume our sonship, right? So as sons of God, we have a responsibility to do this, but as believers in the kingdom and that we must become servers of each other, right?
And that transition point is once truly received as citizens in the heavenly kingdom. What do you think this is referring to?
That's when you fuse within your
That's the fusing point?
That's the fusing point. When you get to the point where your will is God's will, then you're ready for fusion. And at that point, you become what? A citizen of the cosmos, right? That's why we call it faith sons before we become real sons, right? The mysteries of God. Okay.
And this which your eyes now behold, this small beginning of 12 commonplace men, shall multiply and grow until eventually the whole earth shall be filled with the praise of my Father. And it will not be so much by the words you speak as by the lives you live, that men will know you have been with me and have learned of the realities of the kingdom. And while I would lay no grievous burdens upon your minds, I am about to put upon your souls the solemn responsibility of representing me in the world when I shall presently leave you as I now represent my Father in this life which I am living in the flesh. And when he had finished speaking, he stood up.
Okay, so he's telling them here what? That he is putting the burden on their mind of their solemn responsibility of representing him, right? As they are sons of God, they must also represent whom? Christ, right? Jesus, or Michael, whatever you want to consider it, right?
It's not in the mind he's putting the burden, it's in the spirit,
It's in the spirit,
right?
that's right.
Which, what does it mean? Does it mean that it's about the quality of how you live, having a pure heart, as opposed to knowing all the things about the kingdom?
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the way we're going to pray.
It's just not book knowledge, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it can't just be book knowledge. The book knowledge without an action is worthless, really, if you think about it. It's like, you know, when he talks about in other places, hiding your light under a bushel, you know. If you don't share that knowledge, it's of no use, right? But he does say here, though, that it's their actions that
Right.
men shall recognize. Not their preaching, but their actions and their reactions to other men. And that's part of the whole, you know. That's the servant attitude and the responsibility of sonship, too.
And that's the fruit of the Spirit.
It's the fruit of the spirits. That's right. That's right.
It's just seeing the quality of life and the pure-heartedness, right? So that this can grow.
Grow
with-
and grow and grow. Yeah.
And do you think that, I'm sorry to try it again, but that book knowledge, right? The fact that this is purely the quality, you know, it's like planting seed, and I want everyone to be pure in heart and live, you know, life, and without great formal instruction from the mind, intellectual. Do you think, isn't the Urantia Book kind of coming to kind of fill in a little bit of that gap?
It is. It is. I think a big part of that gap. Because there are thousands and thousands of great spiritual leaders, teachers, preachers that's been around for 2,000 years. You know, they've been teaching the words of Christ over and over from what they knew, you know, which was the Bible, basically. And this was not available to them, so they had no concept of this. So the growing of the kingdom was from a reference point that was very small. And now we have a reference point that's very large. So this fills in the gaps that the other, you know. So the understanding should grow exponentially, if you think about it. As this book continues to be discovered by people, it will continue to grow exponentially. And it's out of the hands of the church, it's out of the hands of the government, it's out of the hands of politics, it's out of the hands of everything. This is the knowledge people will retain on their own. You know, there's no authority that's going to put this knowledge into them. They will discover it on their own, one person at a time.
Right. So to further extrapolate, push a little bit more, is that wouldn't that mean that as for our efforts to become, you know, as much good citizen fellows and help others, and then does it mean that we have the same task as the apostle in terms of being ourselves as clean and pure and good, representative of the Spirit and all the pureness, and but also having a little of an extension that where now we have more information, we can help the mind of people as well in the direction.
Which gives us more responsibility.
More responsibility.
This ordination sermon extends the ordination of the apostles to us and our organization for this book, if you think about it, right? We're ordained by God already, you know, if you think about it, because if we believe in God, we become ordained in essence, you know. It's just our commitment. The ordination has nothing to do with being special or anything else. It has to do with the commitment of yourself, right? Nobody can make that for you. People can invite you to be ordained as an apostle or a believer or whatever, but it's really that commitment you make to yourself to God. That's where the ordination really comes in, you know. How far am I going to go? Will I give up everything for what I believe? Yay or nay? You know, some people will, some people won't. For those that can't, those become disciples because they can't make the ultimate sacrifice, their lives, you know. And other people choose to make that kind of sacrifice in their lives. They will do the will of God regardless of what it takes, in other let's keep going. The ordination.
The ordination. Jesus now instructed the 12 mortals who had just listened to his declaration concerning the kingdom to kneel in a circle about him. Then the Master placed his hands upon the head of each apostle, beginning with Judas Iscariot and ending with Andrew. When he had blessed them, he extended his hands and prayed.
Billy, would you take that one?
My Father, I now bring to you these men, my messengers. From among our children on earth I have chosen these 12 to go forth to represent me, as I came forth to represent you. Love them and be with them as you have loved and been with me. And now, my Father, give these men wisdom as I place all of the affairs of the coming kingdom in their hands. And I would, if it is your will, tarry on earth a time to help them in their labors for the kingdom. And again, my Father, I thank you for these men, and I commit them to your keeping, while I go on to finish the work you have given me to do.
Okay, so he's passing the anvil to them, is he not? He's saying, here is the kingdom, I'm giving it to you 12 right now. It's your responsibility. That's the idea. And he stuck around to reveal the Father to them, not to continue with building the kingdom. That's what he had the 12 apostles to do, right? Now what's this saying to us? We're being handed that same opportunity. We're getting past the responsibility to continue on with the kingdom, right? And that's what it's about. And our responsibility includes what? A new revelation, right? Which expands our responsibility, you know? Because you remember, the 12 apostles could only understand the times they lived in. This was too much for them during that period of time. So we've waited 2,000 years, and now we have this new revelation, and our minds have expanded, and we have the opportunity to keep expanding our minds. But it takes a commitment to do that, doesn't it? It takes a big commitment to do that. Okay. All right. Let me bring it down just a little bit here. I'll do it.
When Jesus had finished praying, the apostles remained, each man bowed in his place. And it was many minutes before even Peter dared lift up his eyes to look upon the Master. One by one they embraced Jesus, but no man said aught. A great silence pervaded the place, while a host of celestial beings looked down upon this solemn and sacred scene. Solemn and sacred scene. The Creator of the universe, placing the affairs of the divine brotherhood of man under the direction of human minds.
See him passing the anvil or passing the gavel to them, right?
Did you skip Millie again?
No?
No.
Yeah, I didn't.
No. I did that the other night 2 or 3 times, didn't I, Millie? She was beginning to get a
We're
complex.
watching out for you, Millie.
He was
I
reading
read.
in your
I
place.
guess
I get excited.
I had my turn.
Okay. The ordination sermon. When Jesus spoke, saying, "Now that you are ambassadors of my Father's kingdom, you have thereby become a class of men separate and distinct from all other men on earth. You are not now as men among men, but as the enlightened citizens of another and heavenly country among the ignorant creatures of this dark world." Does that sound like today?
Mm-hmm.
It is not enough that you live as you were before this hour, but henceforth you must live as those who have tasted the glories of a better life, and having been sent back to earth as ambassadors of the sovereign of that new and better world. Of the teacher more is expected than of the pupil. Of the master more is expected than of the servant. Of the citizens of the heavenly kingdom more is required than of the citizens of the earthly rule. Some of these things which I am about to say to you may seem hard, but you have elected to represent me in the world even as I now represent the Father. And as my agents on earth, you will be obligated to abide by those teachings and practices which are reflective of my ideals of mortal living on the worlds of space, and which I exemplify in my life of revealing the Father who is in heaven. So what's he saying to them here? He's saying that they are now citizens of a higher kingdom. They can't act like they did before, can they? They're expected to act like citizens of the kingdom. They're expected to act like what? Representatives of the Son of God as sons of God.
And also to act as if they've been to the mansion halls already and back again.
And come back to what? To teach others, right? To spread the
Maybe
good
they
news.
have.
That's right. You
Maybe
know?
they have.
That's right.
Says, live as you were before this hour. But he said, you know, you, those of you who have tasted the glories of a better life and have been sent back to earth. Maybe more went on that mountain than we think.
We don't know, do we?
We don't know.
That's right.
It's worth contemplating.
Everything's worth contemplating. That's right. All right.
And he's asking them, he's mentioning here, reflective of my ideals of moral living on the world of space. So
All
there is-
worlds, right? All worlds.
All worlds, right? But there is an ideal, right? So
Yeah.
which is kind of a underlying purpose in terms of living. You know, when you eat, you do whatever you do, everything in your life, the work that you do, all the project, all that is what you do with the purpose of as a human being. But underneath the cover, there is a spiritual ideals.
That's right.
And He is God. My ideals are the ideals of God. They are the universal pattern. They are the perfect patterns, ideal for any human life on
Any
any
world.
material world.
That's right.
Right? And more than that, He is God, and He is exemplifying that. I mean, they are looking at God in a human body, exemplifying that. And we are reading that today.
Yeah.
And the other citizens of the world are watching on.
Yeah. Yeah. They are.
This is amazing.
Yeah, it really is. You know, and they talked about the celestial hosts all watching on, you know. And don't you think through reflectivity and through the all these things we've been studying on Wednesday night, you know, the master physical controllers can reveal to any world at any time exact pictures of everything that's going on.
His whole universe.
His whole, the whole universe is wired, in essence, right? So they can see that probably thousands and thousands of planets are sitting watching this take place, you know. So this is an example for everyone, you know. And what an example for us, you know. And he keeps talking about the teacher more is expected than the pupil, right? We're all continuously pupils, but what are we also?
Teachers.
We're also teachers, you know. And we always stay that way. With each level we go up, we become pupils and teachers, right? Teachers for those coming behind us, and pupils from those who've gone before us.
A good leader is a good follower.
A good leader is a good follower. That's right. You have to be willing to learn as well as teach, right? Okay. Oh,
I send you forth to proclaim liberty to the spiritual captives, joy to those in the bondage of fear, and to heal the sick in accordance with the will of my Father in heaven. When you find my children in distress, speak encouragingly to them, saying,
go ahead and get the first one.
Happy are the poor in spirit, the humble, for theirs are the treasures of the kingdom of heaven. Happy are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Happy are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Happy are the pure in heart, for they shall see God.
Okay, let me get this up here.
Aren't those in the Bible as well?
Yes, this is what's
This is
considered the Sermon on the Mount.
But the attitudes.
So those have been recorded, whatever those memories from Andrew and they have been carried. I mean, they have been recorded in the Bible, right?
That's right.
Even though it was
In the
private.
Bible, he's saying it to a large crowd of people.
Yes.
Right.
But he's only saying it to his disciples.
I'm not very familiar with the Bible, but I think I recognize
It's called the
this.
Beatitudes.
Yeah, it's called the Beatitudes, yeah. Okay, let's keep going. We've all heard these many, many times. I'm not going to belabor these because you can figure these out on your own. It's the words of God. Okay. Mom? Or,
Do you want me to read the bottom or just
all the way
continue?
down.
And even.
And even?
Okay. And even so, speak to my children these further words of spiritual comfort and promise. Happy are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Happy are they who weep, for they shall receive the spirit of rejoicing. Happy are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Happy are the peacekeepers, for they shall be called the sons of God. Happy are they who persecuted for righteousness' sake, for there is the kingdom of heaven. Happy are you when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven.
Now we're going to go over each one of these when he talks about them later on in this picture. And this is an interesting picture of a man mourning. Okay.
And that relates to many other places where they say, this life on earth is a life of tribulations, and those tribulations are the greatest thing, because this is what stimulates us.
That's right. It is.
Kind of triggers us into action.
Yeah, actually, I've been thinking a lot about that lately, and it makes a lot of sense. My brethren, as I send you forth, you are the salt of the earth, salt with a saving savor. But if this salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is henceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden under foot of men.
Now remember, during Jesus' time, salt was very valuable, right? It was a very, very valuable spice, and he's going to talk about that later too. I'm not gonna spoil what's coming.
You are the light of the world. A city set upon a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works, and be led to glorify your Father who is in heaven.
So we just talked about this, didn't we? That's what he's going over.
I am sending you out into the world to represent me and to act as ambassadors of my Father's kingdom. And as you go forth to proclaim the glad tidings, put your trust in the Father, whose messengers you are. Do not forcibly resist injustice. Put not your trust in the arm of the flesh. If your neighbor smites you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. Be willing to suffer injustice, rather than to go to law among yourselves. In kindness and with mercy, minister to all who are in distress and in need.
Now that's not our attitude of today, is it? We're willing to take each other to court over nothing, right? In a heartbeat, all right? And do we turn the other cheek when someone does us injustice? Not very often. Not very often. So, and these are the teachings of the Master. So these are the kind of values that we need to what? Get back to again, right? To be harmonious once again.
But I've always had a question about the law issue there, because if someone has done you wrong, through a business even, is it right just to let it slide? You're not teaching the right thing.
Not if they're a brother, okay?
Oh.
What he's talking about is
Among
brotherhood, right? The kingdom of God. That's what he's talking about. Do not take each other to law, to court. He's talking about those who are brothers. If you're dealing with the barbaric society,
Exactly.
that's a whole different ballgame, isn't it? Okay? Because those types of beings are trying to take advantage of you constantly, right? And you have to be on your guard for such things. He doesn't say to lay down and become a rug, right? He tells us to try to set a better example. And we run into this ourselves, in Diane last month, with someone who was basically doing evil things, trying to keep us from progressing in what we're trying to do. And those type of beings, honestly, I don't have much mercy for, and I try to have mercy for everyone, you know. But sooner or later, you have to become the standing bear and fight for your cubs. That's what it is, you know.
And there is a difference in terms of what you do personally when it relates to a personal matter.
That's right.
Versus to an organization of some sort.
That's right.
Right. That's if you are running a business, you got to run that business. There are laws, and you got to do what you got to do. If you are a police officer, as part of maintaining order, you got to do what you got to do. If you are a military soldier and all the military organization, what you do to defend the nation is what you got to do. Whatever is set, and there are a lot of complicated matter. But here he's talking as an individual from a spiritual perspective.
Yeah.
Right.
And how we treat each other.
And how we treat each other.
As the brotherhood of God. That's the difference. And it's a fine line between that, you know. And we can always give mercy to the barbarians, can't we? We can always be merciful. But Jesus does not expect us to become rugs, mats that people walk over. That's the last thing he wants us to be. Because is that being a responsible citizen of the universe? No, it's not. So you have to use your common sense. But he does go on in the next paragraph to say what?
I say to you, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who despitefully use you. And whatsoever you believe that I would do to men, do you also to them.
So we have to think back, what would Jesus do, right? You know, Millie was just talking about this in the bumper sticker, right? Who would Jesus bomb, right? He wouldn't bomb anybody, would he? So we have an example to live by, and we have someone that is example for us.
We have politicians who are willing to go there and put themselves in danger to talk it over,
Yes.
to try and come to an agreement without killing each other.
Yeah,
Some of the people on the other side don't see it that way.
that's right.
But we do have politicians who are trying to work it out without violence.
And we have
those
to-
are ambassadors of peace.
And those are that's exactly right. They're ambassadors to peace. And those are the types of men, being the brotherhood of God, or the kingdom of God, that we have to become, right? You know, above all else. Even when people do things against us, we have to be that way, right?
Right, but he's talking about the spiritual attitude. Bless them, pray for them. He's not saying, hey, here is the money that I've earned hard, for my family or for a religious group or for whatever, and here I give it to you. You don't even have to steal from me. Here I give it to you. He's not saying that.
No.
He said, pray for them.
Pray for
Love them. Don't have hate in your heart for them.
Yes.
You have to be revengeful. Pray for them so that they see the light. Show them the light, right? But not.
Don't let them walk on you.
That's right.
Yeah. Be the example.
I don't think
Right.
many churches today are praying for people on the other side. I think they're praying for our troops,
Yeah.
but they're not praying for those people who are causing the problem. I found that helpful. When somebody does me wrong, go away and pray for them.
Yeah.
Makes me feel better whether it does anything for them or not. I don't know.
Well, we have to continue to keep praying for them and pray that they see the light, right? Let's go on with this.
Her Father in heaven makes the sun to shine on the evil as well as upon the good. Likewise, he sends rain on the just and the unjust. You are the sons of God. Even more, you are now the ambassadors of my Father's kingdom. Be merciful, even as God is merciful, and in the eternal future of the kingdom you shall be perfect, even as your heavenly Father is perfect.
So in all things we have to remember we're the ambassadors of God, right? So in all things we do, we have to respond as what? Ambassadors of God. And try to do what God would do in this situation, right? It's wisdom, right?
Well, and it takes courage
And
to,
it takes courage to use wisdom. It's easier to get mad and react, isn't it? You know, Diane has to call me on this all the time. When I see injustice done, I want to fight. You know, it's my nature.
Yeah, but so does Jesus for others.
Huh?
So does Jesus for others.
So does Jesus for others.
He's
yeah.
talking about injustice to us.
Yeah, I can handle injustice for me, but I can't handle injustice for my wife. I can't handle injustice for my family. You know, those sort of things. You know, I do become the standing bear that will fight. So, and she's seen that this week. I don't like that part of me to come out. So. Okay.
You are commissioned to save men, not to judge them. At the end of your earth life you will all expect mercy. Therefore do I require of you during your mortal life that you show mercy to all of your brethren in the flesh. Make not the mistake of trying to pluck a mote out of your brother's eye when there is a beam in your own eye. Having first cast the beam out of your own eye, you can the better see to cast the mote out of your brother's eye.
And we've seen this over and over and over again.
I call that meddling, people that meddle in other people's business.
Yeah.
You know, they have an opinion of how you should live and they want to, you know, live by their standards, not your own, by God's standards.
We naturally all do that.
We all do it,
We
yeah.
all do that. And the first thing that he's saying before we do all the revelation of anything is, let's be this way, that way ourselves. Let's be in tune ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the light that
Mhm.
will naturally show
Right.
when we do more work.
By the way, for y'all at home, I have done all these slides in yellow now instead of the words in Jesus in red so that you can see them easier on the slides. So. Okay. Jim, you take the next one?
Discern the truth clearly, live the righteous life fearlessly, and so shall you be my apostles and my Father's ambassadors. You have heard it said, if the blind lead the blind, they both shall fall into the pit. If you would guide others into the kingdom, you must yourselves walk in the clear light of living truth. In all the business of the kingdom, I exhort you to show just judgment and keen wisdom. Present not that which is holy to dogs, neither cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample your gems underfoot and turn to rend you.
And who are the swine that you should not cast your pearls before? Those who are barbarians, those who do not believe in God, right?
And there are two kind of classes. There are those who are incapable,
That's right.
That's pure capability.
Yep.
And there are those who may be capable, like the rabbis. They have the mind, but they
Choose
don't.
not to.
They choose not to. They don't have the pure heart.
That's right. That's right. So, and what does he say about that? Do not cast your pearls of wisdom and teachings before those who refuse to listen.
Don't waste your time.
Don't waste your time. Use your time wisely, right? It's being a good steward, right? Okay. Millie.
I warn you against false prophets who will come to you in sheep's clothing, while on the inside they are ravening wolves. By their fruits you shall know them. Do men gather grapes from thorns or figs from thistles? Even so, every good tree brings forth good fruit, but the corrupt tree bears evil fruit. A good tree cannot yield evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree produce good fruit. Every tree that does not bring forth good fruit is presently hewn down and cast into the fire. In gaining an entrance into the kingdom of heaven, it is the motive that counts. My Father looks into the hearts of men and judges by their inner longings and their sincere intentions.
So it may not be as it seems, right? Things may not be as they look, right? Because God looks into the hearts of men, and what is this?
Thistle.
Thistles, right? You can't bring out good fruit from such a mess, can you? All right? It just does not happen. And that's what he's talking about. Life is like the thistles, isn't it? You know? And you have to bring out good fruit, even though we're surrounded by this stuff, right? We're surrounded by barbarianism and that sort of thing, and we got to still bring out good fruit.
He is saying in those last three sentences, very two important concepts. One is, there is only one choice you can make to live eternally. I mean, there is one goal, there is the objective of the universal Father. You adhere to that, and that makes sense. If you don't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And there is an end to it.
There is an
Sooner or
end.
later. I mean, there is only one choice, right? It's binary choice. You make it, or you don't.
Yeah.
You live forever, or you don't.
That's right. And I want to make a point here when he says that if not, it's cast down and cast into the fire, or cut down, cast into the fire. He's not talking about hellfire and brimstone, is he?
Anyhow,
He's talking about cessation of
Exactly.
existence.
Yep.
Right?
So there is only, it's, we decide, it's our choice.
That's right.
But, this is a binary choice, right? And there is eternal life on one end of the spectrum, and there is cessation of life
Yeah,
on the other.
that's right.
And we can be for a period of time in between, but the swing has to go one way or the other.
Sooner or later, you have to make the decision.
There is not a third option.
No.
Right. That's one important. And then the other important thing is that spiritual kingdom is all about the quality, the intents and the motives. It's not about the good words, or it's about all your and that as human we can barely know for ourselves, but we certainly cannot pass judgment on others about that qualitative aspect of it.
But the whole point of that is the Father, the thought adjuster, already knows your motives, right? So we can't fool God.
And divine censors know too
Yeah,
exactly
the
what you're
divine-
feeling, and
that's
what
right.
every thought you have,
Every single.
and we're totally crystal clear of divine counselors.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why they represent us in the heavenly courts, right? All right. Let's keep going.
Many people that
Billy, I think you're right.
I just,
yes,
I think I
that's
should.
Just re- oh.
I didn't want to
Thank
read.
you.
It's
That's right. Making up for last Wednesday.
Billy, it's your turn, it's your turn, it's your turn.
I know of many people that defend the idea of hell, and they use this sentence here that Jesus said about casting into the fire
Into the fire. Yeah.
is what
Evidence of hell.
evidence
Yeah.
of hell.
It's interesting, the Urantia magazine that comes out every quarterly, I guess.
Yeah.
It had Sadler's, one of his tapes that he had done, they had transcribed, and it was really interesting. And some of it you couldn't understand because it's really hard to listen to on your own. But someone had transcribed it, and one of the things they were saying is the first mansion world is actually, some people consider it to be purgatory, because we are continuously purged in the first mansion world for those that make their, maybe they accept God, but they haven't actually acted on the faith of God. And so that it is considered by some to be, by Sadler actually, Junior I'm talking
Yeah.
about, to be purgatory, because that's where we're purged.
All of our beastly tendencies.
Yeah. And we're in a totally different body, and we're in a different
Yeah.
set of circumstances, so it's not cruel, but it's painful, but because you have to continue to grow. The whole ascension plan is about growth,
Yeah.
so,
All 7 mansion worlds is a process of
yeah.
removing the mark of the beast, our beastly tendencies.
It's so much better than we can even imagine, than being here, but it's still, it's a progressive.
Still got to work through all those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We resume at the same point we were in.
Yeah.
That brings actually in my life a lot of questions about, how it is there with all, because look at us, we're going to move, right? Look at the whole world and all the other worlds in more or less states. We get there, right? So what does it mean in terms of, how do we work together and all the bad stuff that happens, how does it work over there? How does it manifest, and how is it being dealt with? So it's, I have personally a lot of questions about that. So wonder.
I think it's interesting too that, in the first mansion world, we have so many helpers and we can see our angels, so we have so many more, tools is not the word. Guidance. We have so much more guidance that we can actually see and feel and hear, and we have so many more senses more abilities that we couldn't even possibly gain the knowledge or the purging there that we could, and we can't do it here, but we can there. The process is intensified.
Which brings the point that at least personal opinion, is that we are, as good stewards, we are supposed to try to learn those better ways that are there, and then to make them happen here as much as possible. Like when we teach our children, our own family, there are some patterns. I know the first one, I make a lot of mistakes, but we are here to learn those patterns by experience and trying to apply them today. The way we deal with any kind of other people or organization. Like all those to help, we should strive for that.
Yeah, we should strive, and think about just one thing in your life. Let's say you're prejudiced against a type of being or a group of people or whatever. Just learning to overcome that one prejudice, may take you 1,000 years on the mansion worlds, because you've become so instilled in the way you think as a human. It's not like you wake up on the mansion world and bam, you don't have those feelings anymore. It's not nirvana. It's much better than here, but you still have to work through those issues and overcome those things one step at a time. So, and it's like you said, you take up there from where you are here. So you don't wake up on the mansion world and you get rid of all your problems. You still have the problems. You have more help in working through those problems, basically.
Which brings another question. It's probably on the side of this, but they talk a lot about all those angels and the different types of angel, and the angels of leisure, and the angel of mercy, and the angels of this, and the angels of that, right? And they are here to help us. So how do we access that? How do we get better at it, right? It's like,
well, when we get to the mansion worlds, we can actually see them and talk to them. So I'm sure that's going to help a lot. In this life, they more put the stumbling blocks in front of us so we learn on our own, right? Because we don't communicate with them. So, you can talk to them, but you don't hear them back, right? So, in this world, they just put obstacles in our way so that we learn the lessons we need to and work through those in this life. People think guardian angels keep things from happening to you. It's actually just the opposite. The guardian angels set up things to happen to you so that you learn your lessons to progress.
Yeah, but there are specifically different types of angels who work on those different types, right?
Of things. Yeah.
Not specifically individuals, but as groups. So they may be doing some stuff that we are not aware of, that are towards improving us as groups in society. And
As humans. Yeah.
What is that? I want to know more of that.
Let's keep moving. We're getting way off base. Who's up next?
Really?
Who's on first? Okay.
In the great day of the kingdom judgment, many will say to me, did we not prophesy in your name, and by your name do many wonderful works? But I will be compelled to say to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who are false teachers. But everyone who hears this charge and sincerely executes his commission to represent me before men, even as I have represented my Father to you, shall find an abundant entrance into my service and into the kingdom of the Heavenly Father. Okay,
so what's the difference here? There'll be lots of teachers out there trying to teach you false information. That's true even today. Okay, but for the ones who hears his charge and sincerely executes his commission. So what is it that allows you to do that? And that is the Spirit of truth, and what? Doing the will of the Father in heaven, right? So if your focus is on doing what Jesus wants you to do or what Michael wants you to do and doing the will of God, are you going to go wrong? No. Okay?
Well, you may make mistakes. You may be.
We all are going to make mistakes. Yeah.
But your intent is pure.
But your intent is, that's right. That's right. Okay. And this is our concept of this last judgment. These are interesting pictures. And this has mostly come from the Catholic background, you know, of the last judgment that the Catholic Church seems to think to have. And I found these and thought these was interesting from the Encyclopedia Urantia.
And where is the one being judged? Those in the pit? Or
Yeah, those down on the bottom are being judged. You know, and that's supposed to be Jesus. And I'll let y'all read these on your own, but this is oils on woods, and these are mostly from the Catholic churches and stuff. This is interesting here. I thought this was kind of interesting. They show Jesus up here on the top, right? And this is supposed to be Michael fighting the devil
Michael
down
being
here.
the archangel.
Yeah, and Archangel
Yeah.
Michael, right? Which we know that Michael and Jesus are the same. But I thought that was kind of interesting. And there's another, just another on there. And these are all in churches mostly, and museums. Here's another one. Notice all the masses of people down here, and then there's the judgment up here.
The ancients of days.
Yeah, the ancients of days. Okay, and this is a ongoing theme. I thought this was interesting too. This was from the Egyptians. Okay, and even in the Egyptian pyramids and stuff is this concept of a last judgment. You know, probably taught by Melchizedek, right? About going to the mansion worlds.
Because at the end of the day, either we go or we don't.
That's right. At the end of the day, we go or we don't. That's right.
And then if we do, it's not secure until we are
Until we fuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, am I up next? Never before had the apostles heard Jesus speak in this way, for he had talked to them as one having supreme authority. They came down from the mountain about sundown, but no man asked Jesus a question. All right, and this is the explanation of the sermon, okay?
Sword, you are the salt of the earth. The so-called Sermon on the Mount is not the gospel of Jesus. It does contain much helpful instruction, but it was Jesus' ordination charge to the 12 apostles. It was the Master's personal commission to those who were to go on preaching the gospel and aspiring to represent them in the world of men, even as he was so eloquently and perfectly representative of his Father.
Okay, so this was meant for those who would represent Christ, right? Those who were to be ordained, those who were to become teachers and preachers, okay? All right.
You are the salt of the earth, with a saving Savior. But if this salt has lost its Savior, wherewith shall it be salted? It is henceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden upon foot of men.
Okay.
In Jesus' time, salt was precious. It was even used for money. The modern word salary is derived from salt. Salt not only flavors food, but it is also a preservative. Makes other things more tasty, and thus it serves by being spent.
All right. See, these are self-explanatory. I'm not going to spend a lot of time.
You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and be led to glorify your Father who is in heaven.
While light dispels darkness, it can also be so blinding as to confuse and frustrate. We are admonished to let our light so shine that our fellows will be guided into new and godly paths of enhanced living. Our light should so shine as not to attract attention to itself. Even one's vocation can be utilized as an effective reflector for the dissemination of this light of life.
So, what's this telling us? This telling us we can become this light in any profession. It doesn't have to be the preacher. It doesn't have to be one who goes out and preaches on the corners and that sort of thing. This light they're talking about can be come through in any profession and anything you do, right?
Don't blind people by
Don't blind it. That's right. That's by hearing. And we have to be careful not to become over-blinding ourselves, right? Overbearing to people. You know, it's kind of like wanting to, you know, I don't know if you remember when you first started reading the Urantia book, what's the first thing you want to do? You want to run around and hit everybody on the head with it. But man, you read it and say, this is so important. You want everybody to know it, right? But we can't do it that way. You know, we have to control ourselves and let it come out naturally. All right.
strong characters are not derived from not doing wrong, but rather from actually doing right. Unselfishness is the badge of human greatness. The highest levels of self-realization are attained by worship and service. The happy and the effective person is motivated not by fear or wrongdoing, but by love of right doing.
Not by the fear of wrongdoing, but the fear of right doing. That's a whole new concept to us, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
By their fruits you shall know them. Personality is basically changeless. That which gives grows is the moral character. The major error in modern religion is negativism. The tree which bears no fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Moral worth cannot be derived from mere repression, obeying the injunction, thou shalt not. Fear and shame are unworthy motivations for religious living. Religion is valid only when it reveals the fatherhood of God and embraces the brotherhood of man. So all this other stuff about guilt, making people feel guilty for some action they do or the way they live their life, and all this is a waste of time. Got that? It's hard, all these do's and don'ts. It's kind of like the Jews. Remember the Jews? They had 630 laws, I think it was. They were so bogged down with the laws they forgot how to live. And that's what they're talking about here.
I have a question I've had, and maybe I've already asked it to the group, but when it says personality is changeless, and he relates that to the good versus the bad fruit, does it mean to say that some of those who have the bad fruit, the bad trees, is because of a bad personality in the first place?
No, well, yeah, in a sense, because they've embraced evil in their life. So their personality has lost the salt of their life.
Yeah.
They've lost the ability to determine what's right and wrong. So they have embraced evil so much, evil becomes the habit rather than discerning something evil. And how do you break that pattern? You try to do the will of God in your life, and naturally you will start doing that which is right. Okay? So those things that are unholy and unnatural and things you should not be doing should naturally start weaning away out of your life, basically. Because you start realizing, this has hurt me, this has hurt my family, this is, if you think of all the sins that we consider sins, the things we consider sins, too much drinking, too much smoking, running around on our families, that sort of thing. We see the injury these things cause to other people, right? So what happens is, by realizing this is not what you would consider a life that God would want you to live, this is not the will of God, you start dropping these things out of your life, and slowly over a period of time you wake up on one day and realize that you're living a holy life, because you've gotten rid of the things in your life that is unnatural. You've gotten rid of the things that we consider sins and that sort of thing. The only real sin is what? Rebellion against God. So it all comes back to the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. And that's what we have to, when you think about it, Jesus put it right. What's the two commandments? Love your neighbor as yourself, love God, right? And if you do that, all the rest of the stuff you won't do, because it injures other people, right? All right, let's keep going.
An effective philosophy of living is formed by a combination of cosmic insight and the total of one's emotional reactions to the social and economic environment. Remember, while inherited urges cannot be fundamentally modified, emotional responses to such urges can be changed. Therefore, the moral nature can be modified, character can be improved. In the strong character, emotional responses are integrated and coordinated, and thus is produced a unified personality. Deficient unification weakens the moral nature and engenders unhappiness.
Is this not what we just talked about doing? You know, you slowly change your attitude, and you slowly change your reactions to things, right?
Without a worthy goal, life becomes aimless and unprofitable, and much unhappiness results. Jesus discourages discourse at the ordination of the 12 constitutions and master philosophy of life. Jesus exhorted his followers to exercise experimental faith. He demonstrated them not to depend on mere intellectual sense, credit, I can't, and established.
Credulity and established authority. So,
Can't get my tongue twisted right.
all right. So he starts out by telling us, without a goal in life, right? We become aimless and unprofitable. Now, what is he talking about? A goal in life, and much unhappiness.
A worthy goal.
A worthy goal, a spiritual goal, to become one with God, right? That's our goal.
See
Right.
truth and righteousness.
Through truth and righteousness, that's right. And what he was saying in this discourse they're talking about, the ordination, constitute his own philosophy of life, right? Jesus' philosophy of life. And he goes on to say, he exhorts his followers to exercise experiential faith in what? He wants them to experiment with the faith they have in God the Father and all the brotherhood of man, right? And then he goes on to say, not to depend merely on intellectual assent. What does that mean? He doesn't want us just to depend on our intellect for everything. Some things it's emotions, right? Evolved also. And the other thing is credulity and established authority. We can't get our instructions from whom? Preachers, politicians, things like that. We have to make our own decisions, right? All right?
Accept that time.
All right. Let's see.
Education should be a technique of learning. The better methods of gratifying our natural and inherited urges, and happiness is the result total of these enhanced techniques of emotional satisfactions. Happiness is little dependent on environment, though pleasing surroundings may greatly contribute thereto.
So it's nice to have pleasing surroundings around us, you know, and beautiful things around us and that sort of thing, but it's not absolutely necessary, right?
It's not the most important
It's
aspect.
not
It
the
helps.
most important. It
It
helps.
helps.
It helps. That's
The
right.
frosting on the cakes,
But the spiritual
some
life
substance.
does not depend on that, right?
That's right.
That's right. Okay.
Every moral really craves to be a complete person, to be perfect, even as the Father in heaven is perfect. And such attainment is possible because in the last analysis, the universe is truly fathomed.
So what they're telling us here is it is possible to live a complete fatherly existence, right? All right.
Fatherly and brotherly love. From the Sermon on the Mount to the discourse of the Last Supper, Jesus taught his followers to manifest fatherly love rather than brotherly love. Brotherly love would love your neighbors as you love yourself, and that would be adequate fulfillment of the golden rule. But fatherly affection would require that you should love your fellow mortals as Jesus loves you.
Okay, so as a father, you love wholeheartedly. As a brother, you love with limits, right? And that's why it's required that all beings do what? Raise children. Either here on this world or in the mansion world. It's a requirement, right?
The brotherly love also is more material, right?
It is. It's more
do
material.
others, unto
Father-
others what you would like to be done unto you.
That's
The
right.
fatherly love is spiritual love.
That's right.
It's,
And it's always forgiving, over and over and over and over again. That's what
Merciful.
a perfect father, anyway. I mean, someone that's closer to perfect. Earthly fathers sometimes fall short by great extents.
So do mothers.
So do mothers. That's right. That's right. Okay?
Jesus loves mankind with a dual affection. He lived on earth as a twofold personality, human and divine. As the Son of God, he loves man with a fatherly love. He is man's creator, his universe father. As the Son of Man, Jesus loves mortals as a brother. He was truly a man among men.
Okay, so he has the fatherly affection for his creation, doesn't he? For all the beings in his universe. He has the brotherly affection as having lived with them and become one of them, right? And that's part of the requirement of creator sons to become human. All creator sons, right? So they gain this experience, and it works the same way. In the mansion worlds, if you don't get the opportunity to raise children in this world, you're required to do so when you get to the mansion worlds. Why? To gain the experience, just like Jesus gains the experience of becoming a son of man, right? It's the experiential part of it.
and then for us, as we start out as human beings, we start loving as brotherly love, but we can and ought to. So start loving, we can, even though we are not the master creator like Jesus.
Yeah.
We can
Love.
work and increasingly love our brethren with the Father love.
With the fatherly
This is
love.
possible.
Yeah.
Then this is
And that's what he's
Yeah.
asking the apostles to do, is to love all men with the fatherly love, right? Just as he loves them.
that's the platinum rule.
Well, he used
Yeah.
fatherly love in his early life too. When his father died, he was in charge of the family, and his mother was pregnant. So
Uh-huh.
he had that last child, Ruth, from infancy on, as well as the other boys.
So he
He
gains
was the father,
he gained the experience of the father, didn't he?
as really and truly a physical earthly father.
That's right. Okay. Millie, I think you're up.
No, your turn.
I keep
He's paying you back.
I'm paying you back for Wednesday.
I thank you for that. Poor Rodney. Rodney's being left out.
See, I talk all the time, so I don't even remember what's my name again. Jesus did not expect his followers to achieve the impossible manifestation of brotherly love, but he did expect them to so strive to be like God, to be perfect even as the Father in heaven is perfect, that they could begin to look upon men as God looks upon his creatures, and therefore could begin to love men as God loves them, to show them forth the beginnings of a fatherly affection. In the course of these exhortations, the 12 apostles, Jesus sought to reveal this new concept of fatherly love as it is related to certain emotional attitudes concerned in making numerous environmental social adjustments. And that's exactly what we have to do on the mansion worlds, isn't it? To make these adjustments as we go through.
The Master introduced this momentous discourse by calling attention to 4 faith attitudes as a prelude to the subsequent portrayal of his 4 transcendent and supreme reactions of fatherly love, in contrast to the limitations of mere brotherly love.
Go ahead.
Go ahead and read it.
You can't read it? You want to take it?
He first talked about those who were poor in spirit, hungered after righteousness, endured meekness, and who were pure in heart. Such spirituousness endured meekness, and who were pure in heart. Such spirit-discerning mortals could be expected to attain such levels of divine selfishness as to be able to attempt the amazing exercise of fatherly affection, that even as mourners they would be empowered to show mercy, promote peace, and endure persecutions, and through all of these trying situations to love even unlovely mankind with a fatherly love. A father's affection can attain levels of devotion that immeasurably transcend a brother's affection.
Notice here it says, even unlovely mankind. So that he's talking about even those that are not very lovely, right?
See what you get like when you get close to 80? Can't read out loud anymore. Whew.
The faith and the love of these Beatitudes strengthen moral character and create happiness. Fear and anger weaken character and destroy. Fear and anger weaken character and destroy happiness. This momentous sermon studied out upon the note of happiness.
Alright, it kind of continues on here.
Happy are the poor in spirit, the humble. To a child, happiness is the satisfaction of immediate pleasure craving. The adult is willing to sow seeds of self-denial in order to reap subsequent harvest of augmented happiness. In Jesus' time and since, happiness has all too often been associated with the idea of the possession of wealth. In the story of the Pharisees and the publican praying in the temple, the one felt rich in spirit, egotistical. The other felt poor in spirit, humble. One was self-sufficient, the other was teachable and truth-seeking. The poor in spirit for goals of spiritual wealth for God, and such seekers after truth do not have to wait for rewards in a distant future. They are rewarded now. They find the kingdom of heaven within their own hearts, and they experience such happiness now.
Okay, so when he's talking about the poor in spirit, he's talking about the humble, right? Alright, that's the point of this. And they reap the rewards of the kingdom of heaven now. They don't even have to wait until they plan it for the future. Right? Alright.
I'm not sure we got that one.
Alright. Rodney, do you think
Thought you had a question.
that's- you have a question?
Number 2. Happy are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Only those who feel poor in spirit will ever hunger for righteousness. Only the humble seek for divine strength and crave spiritual power. But it is most dangerous to knowingly engage in spiritual fasting in order to improve one's appetite for spiritual endowments. Physical fasting becomes dangerous after 4 or 5 days. One is apt to lose all desire for food. Prolonged fasting, either physical or spiritual, tends to destroy hunger.
So it sounds like to me fasting is not such a great idea, is it?
Yeah.
And I have experienced that. I have done like physical fasting, and after a few days, you just don't eat.
You
Yeah,
don't?
I experienced that for 10 days one time when I was going through my divorce, and I couldn't eat, and I didn't have any money, and so I decided to go ahead and do fasting, and so I just drank the water, and I drank soup, broth. And after the first 3 days, I realized how much time was spent on eating, and just preparing food and everything, and then I kept on going, and I felt stronger and stronger in my spiritual life. But then, like on the 10th day, I knew I had to stop because I had no desire for food. And so I had to go back into eating, very light. I didn't have much money anyway, so it was easy. But It was quite an experience, actually. So I do agree with them, but there's so many people. I mean, like Gandhi fasted, you know, and he accomplished a lot in his ministry. And there have been people that have fasted, you know, for the rights of other people, you know, and brought a lot of attention to certain issues.
I don't think that's a good practice, though. I really don't. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
but-
it says it's
To bring
not,
about
but-
change, you know.
But nowadays the fast, I mean the later fast that I've been doing and keep on doing, are actually not complete fast. It's actually you eat light, but you do have superfood that you intake, and you feel actually very, very energized.
Mhm.
So it's not a fast, it's like in the pure sense of the term.
No, it's more of a cleansing,
It's
isn't
more
it?
of a cleanse
More of a
actually.
cleanse,
Yes.
But
Yeah,
they call it the cleansing fast.
yeah.
And it's not a complete fast.
Yeah. We go on. Experiential righteousness is a pleasure, not a duty. Jesus's righteousness is a dynamic love, fatherly, brotherly affection. It is not the negative or thou shalt not type of righteousness. How could one ever hunger for something negative or something not to do?
It is not so easy to teach a child mind these first two of the Beatitudes, but the mature mind should grasp their significance.
Okay.
Happy are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Genuine meekness has no relation to fear. It is rather an attitude of men cooperating with God. Your will be done. It embraces patience and forbearance, and is motivated by an unshakable faith in its lawful and friendly universe. It masters all temptations to rebel against the divine leading. Jesus was in the ideal meek man of Urantia, and he inherited a vast universe.
Okay, so meekness is not what? Being afraid or timid or any of those things. It's the waiting for the will of God, right?
Happy are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Spiritual purity is not a negative quality, except that it does lack suspicion and revenge. In discussing purity, he did not intend to deal exclusively with human sex attitudes. He referred more to that faith which man should have in his fellow man, that faith which a parent has in his child, and which enables him to love his fellows, even as a father would love them. A father's love needs not pamper, and it does not condone evil, but it is always anti-cynical. Fatherly love has singleness of purpose, and it always looks for the best in man. That is the attitude of a true parent.
Okay, so again, this is not a negative attitude, is it? Okay, it's a positive one, right? And that comes back to that fatherly love concept all over again, right? All right.
To see God by faith means to acquire true spiritual insight. And spiritual insight enhances just our guidance. And these, in the end, augment God consciousness. And when you know the Father, you are confirmed in the assurance of divine sonship. And you can increasingly love each of your brothers in the flesh, not only as a brother with brotherly love, but also as a father with fatherly affection.
Okay, so as you use that insight, you get it more and more, don't you? I mean, that's the way it works.
It is easy to teach this admonition even to a child. Children are naturally trustful, and parents should see to it that they do not lose that simple faith. Dealing with children, avoid all deception and refrain from suggesting suspicion. Wisely help them choose their heroes and select their life work.
So we guide them, right?
And then Jesus went on to instruct his followers in the realization of the chief purpose of all human struggling, perfection, even divine attainment. Always he admonished them, "Be you perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect." He did not exhort the 12 to love their neighbors as they loved themselves. That would have been a worthy achievement. It would have indicated the achievement of brotherly love. He rather admonished his apostles to love men as he had loved them, to love with a fatherly as well as a brotherly affection. And he illustrated this by pointing out 4 supreme reactions of fatherly love, which are
Read the first one.
number 1, happy are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted. So-called common sense, or the best of logic, would never suggest that happiness could be derived from mourning. But Jesus did not refer to outward or ostentatious mourning. He alluded to an emotional attitude of tender-heartedness. It is a great error to teach boys and young men that it is unmanly to show tenderness or otherwise to give evidence of emotional feeling or physical suffering. Sympathy is a worthy attribute of the male as well as the female. It is not necessary to be calloused in order to be manly. This is the wrong way to create courageous men. The world's great men have not been afraid to mourn. Moses, the mourner, was a greater man than either Samson or Goliath. Moses was a superb leader, but he was also a man of meekness. Being sensitive and responsive to human need creates genuine and lasting happiness, while such kindly attitudes safeguard the soul from the destructive influences of anger, hate, and suspicion.
Isn't it funny how these emotions are intertwined within each other? You know, they're talking about mourning and that sort of thing, but it also comes down at the bottom. It ties it into the destructive influences of anger, hate, and suspicion. Isn't that interesting?
I know suspicion is a killer.
It is. And this is another mourner. Go on. Pass that. Okay. Happy are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Mercy here denotes the height and depth and breadth of the truest friendship, loving kindness. Mercy sometimes may be passive, but here it is active and dynamic, supreme fatherliness. A loving parent experiences little difficulty in forgiving his child, even many times. And it is an unspoiled child, the urge to relive suffering is natural. And in an unspoiled child, the urge to relive suffering relieve suffering is natural. Children are normally kind and sympathetic when old enough to appreciate actual conditions. Okay?
An unspoiled.
An unspoiled child. See, that should be stressed.
That's a difference.
That's right.
I struggle with that, man.
Yeah.
3, happy are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. Jesus' hearers were longing for military deliverance, not for peacemakers. But Jesus' peace is not of the pacific and negative kind. In the face of trials and persecutions, he said, "My peace I leave with you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." This is a peace that prevents ruinous conflicts. Personal peace integrates personality. Social peace prevents fear, greed, and anger. Political peace prevents race antagonisms, national suspicions, and war. Peacemaking is the cure of distrust and suspicion.
And Millie pointed this out earlier today, didn't she? You know,
Mhm.
these are there's many politicians that go out and do this very thing. They become the peacemakers of the world, right?
Possessive.
Children can easily be taught to function as peacemakers. They enjoy team activities. They like to live together.
Play together.
Play together, said the master of another time. Whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever will lose his life shall find it.
Okay, so what's the greatest sacrifice you can give is you're giving your life for someone else, right?
Happy are they who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for there is the kingdom of heaven. Happy are you when men shall revile you and persecute you and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven.
That's self-explanatory. Jill?
So often persecution does follow peace. But young people and brave adults never shun difficulty or danger. Greater love has no man than to lay down his life for his friends. And the fatherly love can freely do all these things which brotherly love can hardly encompass. And progress has always been the final harvest of persecution.
Right, and almost probably 6 of the 12 apostles did just that. They gave up their lives for.
Can you go back to that last slide?
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, what he's talking about there, greater love has no man than to lay down his life for his friends. It doesn't necessarily mean actually dying. That means, it could also mean putting aside your life for your friends, for someone else.
For the benefit of them.
Yeah, to let go of your goals and desires, to help your mankind out, to help other people out. Theirs is more important than yours.
And that
That's
includes
laying
not
your
only,
life aside.
that's it, that's not only your own life for friends though, Rodney, it also encompasses what? Your family also,
Yeah,
right?
which if
Friends
you're
and
better
family.
for that.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, we've all heard of people that sacrificed great amount of time to take care of people that are ill and that sort of thing. I look at your mother, you know, she has sacrificed her life for most of her life for other people, you know. And that is what this is talking about. She's laid down her life for the benefit of others, right? It's not only giving up your life being killed, but it's giving up your right to live in a different way,
Mhm.
right?
In a sense, he's saying giving up your ego for the greater good.
For the greater good. That's right. That's right.
Children always respond to the challenge of courage. Youth is ever willing to take a dare, and every child should learn early to sacrifice.
Okay, he's talking about sacrificing things that they want, right?
We were just talking.
Yeah. All right. Take that one too, Millie.
And so it is revealed that the Beatitudes of the Sermon on the Mount are based on faith and love, and not on law, ethics, and duty.
Isn't that interesting? It's all based on faith and love. Has nothing to do with what we should do, right? It has to do with what we feel God wants us to do, right? Okay.
Fatherly love delights in returning good for evil, doing good in retaliation for injustice.
We were just talking about that, right? Okay. Hang on, let's look at the time. Everyone let me, I believe I'm going to stop right here, because we're going to, we'll take this up on next Sunday, this section, 6, the evening of the ordination. We're not going to even get close to finishing this today.
Long
So,
paper, huh?
yeah, it's a long paper. So we'll take this up next Sunday at the same spot on Skype. So let's have a little prayer and we'll close for today. Jill, would you like to pray for us today?
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the great plans you have for us, all the creation in the universe. It's amazing. It's amazing that we can be part of your plan. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your encouragement, for enlightenment. Thank you for the words. Thank you for this meeting and the people who are reading and helping each other to learn your word, learn your way, learn your love, learn your light, so that we can in turn be a good steward, good light to our brethren, and help them the way you are helping us, the way the apostle, the way Jesus helped them and help us. May your will come true, and in fact in our lives, in the lives of all men in their hearts. And all those we pray in the name of our Master, Jesus Christ, Michael. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you for joining us at home. Please come see us again. God bless you. I can move enough to get over and turn it off.